Hello folks, here's a quick video on how to put a pull start on your Hisun 700, any Chinese model 700s. It may work on the 500, I'm not sure, but this is for sure the 700 engine. It's the clone of the 660 Rhino. It's near identical. Not great lighting here, but we'll get to it. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to show you everything you need to do this swap. This is just going to be a short little video. I've got it mocked up here just to see if it was going to work or not, and it does if it's perfect. So here's what you need to do. There'll be a link in the description for the one part. There's two parts to this, and the recoil itself, there'll be a link to that one in there. This is the best, the cheapest, and the best one I could find with the best reviews. Okay, so if you don't know, this part goes on here. It's a fan, and so it just sucks air from here, right? And it blows it onto the exhaust back here. That's the idea of it. It doesn't really do a whole lot. The problem with it that it does really do, it will get you in trouble, especially if you're crossing a river or something quite dangerous, is this thing sucks in water and it'll stall the engine out, or it'll suck in mud and stuff, and it'll definitely stall the motor. So what you do is now I did it just like this. I didn't pull the fuel tank, but I've also got my wet clutch off. You can see I'm doing a wet clutch on this thing, and so I was able to put a socket and a ratchet on the nut for the crankshaft. But most people, if you're just changing that, you won't have that option. And when you spin this thing here, it doesn't spin the wet clutch because the wet clutch shoes are in. They're not out grabbing the drum. Okay, so what I was saying here was I didn't know how you'd be able to take the bolt off, and I was saying you could probably put a piece of rope down the spark plug hole and then turn the engine over by hand until it binds up, and then that way you'd be able to take the bolt off for that's in behind that fan area there, like where you have to put the piece from Yamaha in to grab the pull starter. So I can't remember what it looks like now, but you might be able to grab onto that piece with something like pliers or something. I'm not sure. Or maybe you could put some bolts in the end of it and then wedge it with a screwdriver. But most people are probably just going to whip that nut out with an impact gun. I was able to torque mine to spec. I'm not sure. Maybe Yamaha has a tool for it, or it says something in the manual. You might have to check that out. Okay, so what I did was I first took this off. Once that comes off, this is what's under there. This is the fan, okay? So under the fan, this is the part that goes on the crankshaft, okay? And you just unbolt this. It's a 16 millimeter socket, at least that's what it is on mine. Just counterclockwise to loosen it. And then what I did was I bought the factory Yamaha part. I'll have the part number here. This is just for a 2006 660 Rhino. That's what I order all my parts for this thing, is 2006. But that's the part number I used right there. I like that, made in Japan. So there we go. That's the part number. And that's the part right there, is this one right here. So you can find them on eBay, but they were only like 10 bucks, 20, like 15 bucks cheaper. So just go new, and then you know what you got. Now in behind there's a seal, and everything's fine. It just, this thing will bolt right on. It fits nice and tight. Perfect, just like it would on a Yamaha. And then what I did was I kind of just very lightly put very light white grease on the splines and stuff before I put it on. Then you want to put probably a little blue Loctite on the bolt itself. Now you're going to need the washer. The washer you'll see when you pull it apart. Just to make life easy for yourself, take these nuts off, or these bolts off first for the fan. Take them off first before you take this cover off. But yeah, you just take this off, and then this is left, and you take it off. It's very, very straightforward. Keep your four screws You're going to need them to put the cover on. Now, I don't know if these are going to be too long or what. I haven't tried to thread them all the way in, but worst case scenario, you can cut the end off. If you do that, make sure you put a nut on first, then hacksaw whatever you need to hacksaw off or take off, and then you can just unscrew the nut and your threads will be good then. Okay, so, but the nuts are there, or the bolts are there, and yeah, and then you just put the, where's my cover? Here's the cover I got. This is, I got this off Amazon. There'll be a link in the description. And yeah, if you follow my link, I make a little bit of commission off the parts. So even if you don't buy this actual one, you find a cheaper one, I still make a commission. So it certainly helps out. And consider subscribing if you don't, if you want to. I do lots of adventures and stuff. All my stuff is all basically side by side, and a little bit of chainsaw stuff too. But mainly side by side adventures and little adventures like that in the mountains, metal detecting. But anyhow, okay, so there you go. Now you could buy the factory Yamaha one, and that would for sure be probably better than the Chinese knockoff aftermarket. But I mean, this is for emergency only. Now the advantage of having this is now your engine's not going to stall when you get into deep water and stuff like that. And the other thing is now you have a backup way to start this thing, because like I put a brand new starter on this one. My factory one was done, so I put a brand new starter. I pack a starter in my kit, and so if I'm ever way out in the mountains, because you watch my videos, like I'm often all by myself, like miles and miles and miles from anywhere, so I can't afford to break down. So I do what I can to prevent that from happening. So what I do is I pack another spare starter with me. This thing's as easy as it's going to get to work on if you have to work on it in the field. So that gives me that backup. But there's also another one-way bearing that's in behind, is it on this side? I think it is. Yeah, I think it's in behind here. There's a big one-way bearing. And if it fails and your starter's still good, you're dead in the water. There's nothing you can do. Your battery, let's say your battery dies. This is going to prevent all that. Like this thing will run. I don't even think it needs the battery hooked up to run, because I seen another video where a guy tried that. Assuming these are identical to the Rhinos. But yeah, so it just gives you that extra reassurance. So you're out in the bush, you can still start this thing over. Now these things have a lot of compression, and you know, you really got to commit when you give them a pull, but you're at least going to be able to start it. This thing starts extremely easy. So I can't fire this thing up for you now in the video, but on other videos I'll show it in action. I got to put the new wet clutch on and the drum and stuff. Okay, so here we are months later. I've driven this thing all summer with this starter in there, and I had to do this one last test just to show that it actually starts. I didn't have it together when I made the video, but anyway, so what you do, you put the key on, make sure it's in neutral, and then it's quite a pull, and if you do it the wrong way, it'll try to suck you back into the motor. Basically, these things have stupid compression. So what you do is you pull it up, you just pull it over till you feel compression, like till you feel it stop, and then put two hands on it and give it a good pull. And that's it. Handy to have in case your battery dies. Starts really good actually if you've got your machine tuned up, you know, really good. It'll fire it up for you. But that's just awesome to have, because like I say, if the battery dies or the starter fails, or your starter clutch bearing, your one-way bearing for the starter clutch, even if that fails, I believe that's another thing that you'll be dead in the water, and this thing will get you out. And I even seen a video where somebody did it with a Rhino. This one's a Chinese version, same thing basically, other than built. It's not built as well as the Yamaha Rhinos, but they're pretty much identical in build. Anyway, and he didn't even, this other guy had with a Rhino, he didn't even have a battery in there, like not even hooked up, and he was still able to run it and make it fire. So that's why I like these old carbureted machines, because they're just a lot easier to get going if you have a failure. I've got a spare fuel pump, I've got this backup starter. I do have booster cables, and I actually normally pack a spare starter when I'm, you know, not getting firewood and I'm on an actual trip. I pack lots of spare parts, but I mean, I pack a spare coil, a lot of stuff, right? So this is just one like extra thing to get you out of the bush. Okay, there you go, folks. Pretty easy upgrade to do to your Chinese side-by-side, or this is actually the same thing for the Yamaha Rhino 660 as well. Yeah, it's a really nice thing to have, just another backup. They got rid of these pull starts on these things, and I think they should have just kept them on there, like the quads had. But this is just, I just ordered this for a Yamaha Grizzly 660, and bolts right on. I don't know if there's a gasket. I gotta look online and see if there's a gasket. I don't think there is. There's quite a gap in there. I don't know if you should just leave it open, I guess, so the water can drain through. I might try to seal mine. Maybe I'm gonna take this a step further, put some kind of a little plug in the bottom so that I can like pull a bolt out, you know. I might do that actually, drill a hole and just put a bolt with like a copper wash or something, so that way if I do get this thing underwater, at least I can drain that. But it's just gonna free up a lot of space around the engine stuff too, which makes it just nice to work on and whatnot. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll catch you on the next one. Well, I got no back brakes, no engine braking, don't even have a seat belt, no power steering, and a Chinese side-by-side. We're on the top of the mountain. We're hopefully going up there. Wish me luck. Well, I think this is a bigger load than last time. I put a counterweight on the front. I probably should have put an even heavier one on the front, but oh well.